Hey guys, so today we are answering a subscriber question, and the question in question was, Frederick, what about OKRs and stretch goals? How do we deal with that? So let's get into it. Well, the specific specific subscriber had this discussion with me regarding OKRs. For those of you who don't know that, that's called Object Key Results, and you can look that up. It's a work paradigm where you define basically objectives for the company, and then you have team objectives, and then you have key results for delivering on specific of the that you break these objectives into, and then you have it's a whole story, it's a whole system, but basically it's a way for you to plan out roughly a quarter worth of work and aligning people on a direction to move towards. Now, the thing with OKRs is, and the thing that this person was describing is that, all right, but it's all good and well, Frederick, that because this was in response to one of the videos that I made for talking about how one of the most important things that you can do in order to make sure that you meet a deadline is to set the correct expectations, because if you have false expectations going in, it's likely that you will fail simply because your stakeholders think one thing is going to be delivered and you think another thing, and you only later on discover that, hey, there's a mismatch in expectations here of what's going to be delivered versus what's desired to be delivered. And the only thing you can do in that scenario when you're falling behind schedule is usually to cut corners or reduce the scope. And as this person described, well, you can't just change OKRs however you want. And that's the thing what I will claim, from the people that I've done OKRs with, I basically see one very common pattern within this. And that is one part of this, this person nails one of these scenarios where basically people feel as if, okay, we have committed as a company to these OKRs, we have said that this is what we're going to deliver, there is no, this is something that can be changed. Now, the issue with this is very similar to making an uninformed decision, because the idea of stretch goals and the idea of OKRs is that you find this uncertainty sweet spot where basically you try to stretch, you create a stretch goal. You're trying to create a state for where your employees within the company have a slight uncertainty whether or not they're going to be able to deliver all of the things that they have promised. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, the reason why you want to do that is because if a person feels that there's just the slight little sensation, they're not really sure if they're going to be able to make it, they will have this sensation of urgency. They will have this, the idea is anyway, that you're going to get that motivation to actually work as hard as possible. You're going to focus on the things that truly matter because you simply don't have time to mess around with stuff that isn't important. And if you have truly planned OKRs correctly, then you should have the top priorities on that board or as part of that list, right? Which means that you're not going to have time to do things that aren't truly relevant. You don't want to stretch it too far. I mean, if you make something truly, if you make people feel like that something is completely impossible, they will feel demotivated from it, so they won't actually even try. And if it's too easy, you're going to lose productivity and people are going to kind of just mess around. Well, I'm not saying mess around, but they're not going to be as productive as possible. But what the problem here is that by definition, if you create a stretch goal, something that you feel is uncertain whether or not it's going to be completed, then, as I said to the subscriber, then you have already put yourself in a state where, depending on how you define things, you're either very likely going to fail or you're going to have to either change your OKR somehow. The way that I think about this is that the main thing that people do in my world incorrectly with OKRs is that they misunderstand the purpose of them. Basically, the idea of an OKR is not that it's some type of mutable truth that you completely commit to for 3 months, because that's not just feasible. I mean, you could have a new customer could come in tomorrow and completely present this amazing opportunity for your company, and then you have to reschedule. OKR, who cares if what you said yesterday, if this thing today is a much more important thing, then you have to change those OKRs, because it doesn't make sense for you to work on something that is not critical. I mean, that's the whole point. And this exercise, which OKRs are, is just a tool for you to align people and basically create this state where people truly work on the things that are important to them and feel motivated from doing so, because that's the underlying thing that you're going for. Now, when you define these OKRs, you have two sides of the spectrum. Then this is the beautiful thing about language. You see, language is, you can interpret language. You can interpret it any way you want. And because it is something that you can interpret, you can actually, for an OKR period, you can set up OKRs that either make it very likely that you will fail, like the truly ambitious things that are going to push basically push people to their absolute limit, or you can define OKRs that can never fail. An example is that, let's say if I state that I'm going to cut my company cost, or like our total cost, by 50%. Now that is truly ambitious, regardless of the definition, like the formulation of that I just stated it's extremely ambitious. I mean, 50% is an enormous amount of, that's a big deal, right? And it's very unlikely that I will be able to do this because of the way I formulated myself. But if I turn it over and I take it to the other extreme and I say, I am going to take 5 meaningful steps to improve or to reduce cost in this company. Now that's a task, like that's an OKR that I can't fail. What does 5 steps mean? You see, that's the second part that I see a lot of people doing when they fail at OKRs. They start by the very end of things, realize that shit, we're not going to be able to deliver on stuff. And then they try to tweak their formulation and the meaning and the definition of what they've been saying for the last 3 months just at the end, because they want to present good numbers to their stakeholders. So they try to tweak things to see if they can just check some boxes off by just playing around with language a little bit. And guys, instead of going through that exercise, try to figure out a way to formulate yourself so that you can because the thing is, what are you optimizing for? If you're optimizing for working your workers to death, you can do that by defining things in a certain fashion. You can also define things as taking these 5 steps, like being on the other extreme. That's an extremely useful way for you to get the ball rolling on people actually getting into this mindset that, okay, maybe we can take some steps to improve things, like get the creative juices flowing. You have to ask yourself what you're that's the dirty secret with OKRs. It's a mind game. It's an attempt for you to basically optimize your company for going in a certain direction, and aligning people and fundamentally getting them to be more productive. So I think that when you're considering working with OKRs, make damn sure that you know what you're trying to optimize for. So when you're formulating yourself, I mean, the goal is with OKRs isn't that they should become this massive stressor or this immutable thing that you can't change. It's about finding a way for you as a team or as a company to define what your values are, like what your goals are, what the ambitions with these goals are, and very concretely mapping out the steps that you are going to take to make that happen. And how you define it is the thing that's going to determine whether or not you will succeed. An example is that a lot of companies have third-party dependencies. And that's a beautiful thing, because the problem with third-party dependencies is that you don't control them. It doesn't matter if you say that we're going to deliver this project in 3 months if your client is going to require 6 months to get things done on their end. There's nothing you can do about that. So in such a scenario, what you could state, I mean, if you say we're going to deliver within 3 months, I mean, you've already failed because you're not going to be able to control the external party. But what you can do is you can state something like, we will be on schedule consistently through this period, like until this project is done. Things on our end is we're always going to be on track. You can formulate yourself like that. Or maybe if you need to figure out a way to speed up your third-party dependency, or like help them be more productive, then you can go with the other approach, as I said, and you can say, we are going to take 5 measurable steps to improve time to market for our customer, or for our third-party dependency. So you can play with language. That's the thing that I want you to take away from this. So what I want you to take away from this is that when it comes to planning out OKRs, ask yourself first and foremost, what is it that you are actually trying to optimize yourself for? Because depending on how you formulate yourself, you're going to be able to set yourself up for guaranteed failure every single time. It's all in the formulation. And you're also going to be able to set yourself for guaranteed success. There's no way for you to fail. And finding where on that spectrum you want yourself to be, that's the thing that you're going for when you're setting good OKRs, because the goal, like the true goal of OKRs, has to do with motivating people to be ambitious and stretch themselves to that point of, like, that sweet spot of uncertainty, and basically be motivated to give that extra effort for the company. Have a great day.